Hello. Yes, my name is Reet Aus. Nice to meet you all. I'd a little bit talk about my background before I start to talk about the fashion industry and about my work. So I'm graduated as fashion designer in Estonian Academy of Arts. And I think our school is really very good design school because the design education is something you can use not only designing clothes but really, really everywhere because design is just all around us. I graduated in the end of 90s. It was very interesting time in Estonia because I don't know how much you know about Estonia, but it used to be the Soviet Union, and middle of the 90s, before my studies, we got back our freedom. And it means everything started to change really, really quickly in that country. So when I graduated, that was the time when everybody started their own businesses. And it was very interesting for a lot of different fields, but especially in fashion and in design, because we never had private companies before that. And of course, for me as a young designer was extremely interesting to figure out how to start our own brand. And so it started. And then I did my MA studies. During my MA studies, I understood that actually the fashion design I have studied is not something I would actually like to do. Why? Because we were really learning how to do the fashion by the book, how to design or how to make a collection in the conventional way. And very soon I started to realize that I would like to do things really differently. Why? The reason is very simple, because I understood that the way how we are producing and designing our things, and not only clothes, but everything what's around us, is not very sustainable. And then, of course, is the question why sustainability is important and how design can make difference. And when I opened my first studio, 2002, since that I have been only using sustainable materials or more just already existing materials. So I kind of entered to the area what was not so well researched yet in these times, and it's about the waste. It's about the production waste, it's about the post-production waste and post-consumer waste, especially in the fashion and the textile area. So, and then I understood that actually, even if I would like to discover that area more and more, there is not enough research done. So I had to go back to academia, and I started my PhD studies. And then my research topic was exactly textile waste. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Here you can see something I'm 100% sure you're really familiar with. It's the product life cycle. We are talking about textiles, so you can see here the cotton-based product life cycle. It's a very good example. Why? Because cotton is the raw material what consumes a lot drinking water, as you know. And if we take one product, for example, pair of jeans, it consumes around 11,000 liters of water during all the production periods. And the biggest part of it comes from the growing cotton. India is very good, very big cotton producer. And I'm quite sure that you have really familiar with all the problems related to it. Is it so? You know? Are you talking about these issues in the school? Yes? Yes. I would be really happy if you give me some feedback, because maybe I'm talking something you really know, then you have to let me know, then I talk something what is more interesting for you, yeah? So then the next part is manufacturing, which is also having sort of impact for the environment. 7.5 years ago, we started one really nice research project in Bangladesh with one very big factory. It's really one of the biggest in Bangladesh. It's 40,000 workers, so you can imagine it's really big. And we started to work with them to understand how big is the wastage in the average factory. It came out that the factory really didn't have any idea how much they produce waste. So we did little research there, spent some weeks, did proper waste analysis to understand how much waste they generate during the production, and they are really like vertically integrated. It means they bring in only the raw material, they make the yarn, they make the fabric, they produce the product, and they send it out. They do everything there. So we were really able to monitor every step of the production. And it came out that in that very big and very efficient factory, still around 20% will stay there as a leftovers. And as the company is not a waste management company, they have nothing to do with that. So what happens with the production waste? It goes somewhere. When you ask where, nobody knows exactly where. So they try to sell it somewhere in the local market. They try to find the recyclers. But the problem is that in the moment when they finish production, all the information, all the transparency ends there. And it's very difficult to sell the fabric or even to give the fabrics to the recyclers because the waste department doesn't know what material it exactly is. And the recyclers, especially the mechanical ones, they need to know, they need like 100% mono materials usually. So it came out, all of the process is quite tricky. They are not able to get rid of the waste. And in the same time, if, for example, production areas in India and in Bangladesh and in the different countries struggling with the production waste, then when we go back to, for example, to Europe, then for the Europe, the biggest waste issue is post-consumer waste. It means all the clothes produced here, sent to the Europe, for example, were then used there. Not too many times, as we know from the fast fashion concept. A lot of people really consume and they maybe wear some clothes 1 or 2 times and then they throw them away. And a lot of places, textile waste is still not collected and ends up in the landfills, which is, of course, not the best way to use our resources. So, 2019, EU released one very interesting report, and from that report we can read that inside the EU, we are able to collect only 25% of post-consumer waste, talking about clothes then. And from that 25%, only 1% we are able to recycle. So it means that the problem is not only here, the problem is there as well, if we are talking about production and the consumption part of the world. And EU and UN, they have said out loudly now, the end of last year, that textile sector will be the first priority after the plastics. It means that we really need a lot of very good designers in this area. We need a lot of innovation. We need to find the ways how we actually can reduce the environmental impact in that industry. And as you know, the textile and fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world. So we finally start to understand what's wrong with the industry. After so many years doing a lot of things really wrong, we start to realize that. It has been really wrong way to go. So, but I have a good news as well. We have the solutions how to solve that issue. And the key, of course, like in many other, regarding to many other problems, is always design. How we design our products, how we produce them, and what we will do with the products when consumer doesn't want the product anymore. So, coming back to that little drawing here, I will a little bit explain all the words here. What means upcycling and what means recycling. I think you all know what recycling means, yes? You know what upcycling means? Yes, few kind of knows. Okay, but let's see that way, that we have the production waste. And I can imagine you have visited a lot of factories, you have seen that yourself. So then the second part of the waste, which is, I think, the most ironic, is the pre-consumer waste. It means that factories produce 3 to 5% extra products. And for the factories, this is also leftovers. And if you think about the life cycle of that product, then they even don't have the possibility to have any life. They go directly back to the waste management. But it's not the only place where we have the pre-consumer waste. Also, like a lot of retail shops, all the products they are not able to sell, and that's a lot, goes directly to the waste. It goes directly to the household waste. Still, it means the landfill or the burning facilities. If you think that way, that how much we put resources into the product to get this pair of jeans, and they don't have any life, and we just, let's say we burn them, then we put a lot of resources in and we get just a tiny bit of out from there. So it's not balanced well, so it means it's not sustainable. And we were a little bit talking about already post-consumer waste, which is really big issue in the Europe, for example, and also in the US. The best thing to do with post-consumer waste is reuse. And we really can see that second-hand market is growing, which is really nice, because if you see from the environmental point of view, always the best thing is to keep some item cycling circling as long as possible, like staying to be used. I hope you all like reuse as well, and really give your old clothes to your sisters, brothers, etc. You change the clothes with friends, etc. So, for example, the kimono I'm wearing right now, it's also second-hand, brought from Japan, for example. But what happens with all the other post-consumer waste we are not able to resell? I told you already, in Europe we try to collect it. In Estonia we have the biggest organization called Reuse Center, who is collecting the waste. Estonia is a really tiny country, just 1.3 million people, really small. And that's our one and the biggest organization, but every month they end up about 70,000 tons of unsold clothes they have to get rid of. And I have been working with them many years, and I really see how they struggle to find the recycle for the clothes. And a few years ago I visited the biggest sorting center in the Europe. It's in the Germany. And I understood why this is so difficult, why this is still so expensive, so difficult, why we are not doing it. Because the sorting part has to be done by hands. It means I went to the sorting center there and I really saw 900 Germans sorting our old clothes by hands. Because there is no such the machine that you put the clothes in and it will kind of sort out the cotton, wool, etc. No, it has to be done by hand. And it means it's really very tricky. It's expensive, time consuming, and complicated because they have to check the labels on the clothes. And that's why the one point, very, very important to use monomaterials, to develop monomaterials. Why? Because then we are able to recycle them. We are able to bring the material back to the cycle. So, and when we are talking about recycling, for example, we have the cotton jeans, for example. We do the mechanical recycling, we make new yarn out of it, we make new products. Then it's actually called downcycling because we take one product which is in one level and we bring it down as a material. We put again some resources in to get new material out of it. When we are talking about upcycling, then upcycling is most efficient way to bring materials back to the production. Why? Because it's mostly design concepts. It means that you use the materials but already there, you use the design, you design the new product and you produce it in the same production line, for example. So I think these are really the key words to understand how to deal with the waste in the textile and fashion industry. And actually it does not matter, it's everywhere, not only in the textiles. I show you some photos just to illustrate what we were talking about. This is one of my colleagues standing behind the factory, our factory in like the factory where we are producing, behind the gate. That's how it looks when we have all the small leftovers and we don't know where to put them because there is no proper system to deal with them. And this is, as you can see, they are really like small cutting pieces. Just when we go to the production, there are like 3 types of waste. One is the cutting leftovers, the smaller pieces. Usually they would be very, very good for the recycling. Here you can see roll ends, and that's the biggest part of the leftovers. It's really thousands of meters. And why we end up with the leftovers like this? Because in the big production, it's impossible to use small rolls. For example, if we start the big production and let's say 300 rolls comes in for the production of jeans, then and the cutting table is 50 meters long, then everything what's less than 50 meters ends up as a leftover. And so that's how we have this kind of big stores full of roll ends, but they are very, very nice material to upcycle. So we are producing all of our collection from that type of leftovers. Sometimes we have, I don't know, 200 roll ends. Every roll has 30 to 50 meters on, etc. For the small production, it's really, really good. Here you can see this overproduction I mentioned before. That's a huge problem in the production areas. Why? Because they are really good quality ready-made products, but as factories do not sell, then for them it's really waste and they have nothing to do with it. So really often you can see them sold in second-hand shops in Europe, for example. Labels cut out, etc. But this is actually exactly the same type of waste what I was talking about. Here you can see the workers sorting by the material and the color. Here is one girl sorting in the Dhaka in Bangladesh, the denim leftovers. And yes, the truth, of course, is that if you go these kind of places, you see a lot of kids working in there as well. Here you can see in the factory, the Bangladeshi factory, is overproduced products all packed, and they are taking them out to the cars, and they are. We were just a little side story. Years ago, we were doing one documentary about environmental impact in the fashion and textile industry, and we try to follow these tracks to understand really where are they taking on all this kind of leftovers. And it was kind of dead end. We really didn't figure it out, even though we were trying hard, because we didn't get into the black market. It's basically, if you would like to ask, I really don't know what happens with these products. Where do they go? Here you can see one line in the same Bangladeshi factory where we produced one very big, for us, very big order. It was a few years ago. One Estonian festival ordered 24,000 t-shirts. And that was one very tricky production because we used overproduced garments. And in that case, the factory was facing huge problem with one client who actually, the reason was that factory was 3 days late sending out the order, and factory ended up with 70,000 t-shirts, ready-made, good quality, but client didn't accept it because it was late. And then we thought, okay, we should try to do something, and we ran a test. Luckily, we found a client for the idea, and that was very tricky production for the big factory. They never done something like this before. All the cutting was completely different because we had 70,000 ready-made t-shirts, and we had to recut them to make completely new design out of it. But we were lucky. We were able to do that, and we got the products, and everybody, in the end, of course, were happy. So after the research, what we did in this Bangladeshi factory, we understood that we can do this industrial upcycling. We can really help the factories bring the leftovers back to the production. And then together with Stockholm Environmental Institute, we started a process to develop a certification called UpMade. It took a few years, some more testing, and 4 years ago we ended up certifying our first line in Bangladesh in the company called Preconsumer. Since that has been our main line where we produce. It's inside the factory, and when we are talking about industrial, is to use the leftovers from the same factory. We never transport the leftovers from one to another. We always go to the factory, we certify the line, and we start to produce inside the factory, helping the factory reduce the wastage. And with that, also we help them to reduce environmental impact. Now I a little bit talk about the brand what we are producing, because I think we have understood that we have some problems in that industry, and of course we have solutions as well. So when we're talking about textile waste, there is two main solutions for the problem what we are facing right now, and it's upcycling and recycling. So why upcycling is good? Because really the factory doesn't have to invest money. Factory doesn't have to build up some new sites. Factory can use exactly the same lines they have been using always. They do the same work, etc. Only thing what has to be done differently is cutting. You have to do that by hand, or on the smaller table. But one thing what we also did during the waste analysis, we carried out the environmental analysis for the factory to understand how much upcycled garment could be more sustainable from the the garment made from the virgin material. And comparing these two t-shirts, for example, when it's made from the cotton, then the result for me even was really surprising. So basically we could save 70% of water and 88% energy. And I think from that moment I understood that this is really such an easy way to reduce environmental impact in that industry that it's very difficult to see why we should produce differently, or why factories are not implementing upcycling to their production, or why brands are not using all the material what actually they have paid for. Because if you see it from different sides, everybody will win. The brand, for example, some big brand orders, I don't know, 60,000 pair of jeans. But the calculations actually show that if they could adapt upcycling, they could make 10 to 15% more from the same fabric. And it would be, if you take it to the design level, it would be really, really easy to design products already made from their own leftovers, what they can collect from their other production sites as well. And through that, we would be able to reduce a lot of water consumption, electricity, and of course CO2 as well. I will show you some items from our collection. They are all upcycled. Today I'm also wearing the t-shirt and the jeans, both upcycled. This arrow shirt is kind of became our signature product we have been producing now 5 years. Our collection is a slow fashion. We don't make the new collection every season. We have the basic collection and we bring out some new design every year when we see that there is need for the new designs. But we really have products in our collection since the beginning. Some jeans, the same t-shirt, like different ones. And what I see in Europe, and when I'm talking about our clients, I really can see that people are ready to consume less. They are ready to consume more sustainable products, because the dialogue what we are having nowadays in the media, etc., is really stressing out so strongly that we have to change. In EU, we are talking a lot about circularity, about circular business models, and there is no way to be completely circular without implementing upcycling and recycling into your business model. So here you can see one dress. Years ago, when I was having a little fashion show in Germany, then one lady came after the show and said to me, yeah, but I was waiting some upcycled products, but they were just completely normal products. How come? And I really took that as a compliment, because really from the leftover materials you can make things that look exactly the same than every other product you see in the shops. So it's always the matter of design, how you design your product and how does it look like. There is one t-shirt we made to complement circularity. This is also a product with arrow. Arrow, as you of course, I think you already understood, means that we are taking as a symbol of upcycling, taking the material to the higher level. This is, you can see the little blue arrow, all the upcycled products coming from the UpMade certified line. They have this little blue arrow to show that it's upcycled and UpMade certified. Here is plain white little dove. And as you can see, then our design handwriting is really a lot of details, because, for example, this is one of our most difficult products, I would say so, because there are really small details, and that's a way how we can also use some of the cutting leftovers. The best way would be to produce that way that you already go into the main production cutting, and you add the small details into the original layout. Then when they are cutting out the original product, they will cut out already the details for the upcycled product as well. That would be the most efficient way to do it. But for that, you really need very, very good communication with the factory. And one thing what also we understood, that to implement the upcycling from the brand side and from the factory side, there has to be full transparency. That's the reason why a few years ago we started to develop one software what actually does the waste calculation, waste analysis and environmental analysis, just to help brands to see what's going on in their production sites, and also gives to the factories full transparency about their materials and the processes, and they really could know in the moment when they start production, they already will know how much and what type of leftovers they have and what they could produce from it. And that gives the opportunity to offer that material, upcyclers or the recyclers. Because a few years ago, together with Stockholm Environmental Institute, we ran a little test in India with one small producer in southern India, and we were able to make them waste-free. So if you are smart enough, and if you implement the upcycling, and if you go for the industrial symbiosis and you find, for example, recyclers from your region, then yes, with little bit of work, you will end up with a factory with no waste. Our main collection is very simple. We mostly produce t-shirts, denim, also some dresses. And the design is different, for example, from the collections I used to do before. Why? Because it's always, when you are using upcycling, then as a designer, you always have to start from that point, what kind of material you have. It's really different from being a designer who just sits behind the table and draws a beautiful dress and then tries to find good material for that beautiful dress. So it's, you always, when we go to the next factory, to the new factory, and we do the waste analysis, it always depends what kind of products are they producing. For example, in Bangladesh, the factory we are working with, they are very good in jersey and denim. So we couldn't produce silk dresses there because they have no such a material. But we can produce very, very good quality t-shirts and denim. Here you can see the details a little bit. We really, many years we have put to get the good quality, and we always, when we start with one factory, we spend a lot of time to get the quality we want from the place. Here you can see one dress, and this is a good example because the small details, they are cut from the cutting leftovers, so you can combine different type of waste, upcycling or designing the new product. The same product, but different fabrics. This product is different. This is now recycled. 3 years ago, we started a project in Europe. We started to figure out how we could recycle our own clothes, old clothes, what customers are bringing back to us. And together with the Estonian Reuse Center, we and one big retailer, we started a project. We were collecting old post-consumer jeans. We found one recycler from Holland. We sent all our old jeans to them. They produced the yarn. It was mechanically recycled yarn. We bought the yarn back and we made new products out of it. It was a very interesting project to do because it was not so easy. So we wanted to have 100% recycled yarn. But if you do the knit, then it's quite okay. 100% should be fine. There are a few factories who do that in Europe. But we ended up with the yarn with not very good quality, and then we were not able to find the factory who could produce from that yarn, because everybody said it's not, the quality is not good enough. Finally, we found one from Lithuania. They were willing to work with us and try the yarn. We ordered the first products from them, and after 1.5 months, they said that they are sorry, they are not able to use the yarn. That they can't take they can't say that they will be successful, let's say that way. So I still said to them, let's still try, we will pay you, it's fine, we take the responsibility and let's still try, let's see how it goes. So they produced first batch, and then they called back to me and said, yeah, it went quite okay, but all the first panels are not good. We have to start from the beginning. I said, okay, let's start from the beginning. Let's see, are we able to get the product we really want? Because if you think that it seems to be so easy, the mechanical recycling. It can't be so difficult. If you think about it, it should be very easy. But it's not easy to get good quality out of it. So finally we ended up actually with very nice products, but very expensive ones. It took really a lot of time, a lot of resources, but we were really happy with the products. But then we found some other producers from Europe who are producing from the production leftovers, which is so much easier because you know exactly what's in it, and the quality is better, etc. And they are adding, let's say, in that product you see on the photo, there is 65% post-consumer waste in it. So, and the quality is really good. So now I have talked a lot. I would like to see if you have any questions to me that we could talk more about the topics I didn't cover yet. Any questions?
Are there any questions? We can have the volunteers quickly. We can take 3 questions. Yes, volunteers, could we quickly have you, just give us a second. Or could you be loud enough? Could you try without a mic? It's going to take, there, can you go there?
Me?
How do you maintain, how do you make the products price efficient and also sustainable?
Oh, sorry, ask one more time.
How do you make the products price efficient? Because most of the sustainable products are quite expensive and people don't want to afford that since they get products at a much cheaper rate.
Yes, our products are really in the middle price range. For example, our jeans, they are 90 to 120 euros, which is completely, I would say, lower middle price range.
But how do you get them to be price efficient?
Sorry?
How do you make them price efficient?
Price efficient. That's a tricky question. When we're talking about upcycling, then we don't get the fabric for free. We pay the fabric around 30 to 50% from the original price. This is actually, that's the place where we are kind of playing with our prices as well. because our production is much more expensive. In the two reasons. One reason is that we have to do the hand cutting. It takes much more work, much more time, and our products have so much more complicated. They are not very easy to make, so that's how we compensate. So basically, if you put together the product which is upcycled and the product what is made from the virgin material, then the material cost usually is one of the biggest inside the product. So that's how we compensate the work hours.
Any other questions?
This session begins with somewhere we are talking about sustainability, but then again, many of us, we don't know what is sustainability. And we are so much addicted to change, like every time, like many of my friends, they have so many pairs of clothes, shoes, but are we really practicing this sustainability, which we can really do at small steps? So like, and even the designers, like every year they are producing some new collections, but they are not encouraging youngsters, or like they are not talking more about sustainability.
That's why.
So what you have to say on that?
Sustainability is that you don't consume more than you use. Basically, you don't take from the future. If you, for example, if you see how nature works, there is no leftovers. Everything what nature produces goes back to the cycle. If you see how we humans are working or doing or living, we produce a lot of waste. So, and everything what we produce, we put a lot of resources in, and if we just try to get rid of that after we don't want to use it anymore, and we just take more from there, it's completely out of the balance. It's just very, very simple. It's basically black and white. You just, but of course, I think exactly that's something what the new generation has to really start to practice.
Yeah,
because my generation and the little bit older ones, it's complicated. The most complicated is to change somebody's habits. If somebody already has the habit to buy full new outfit every month, and you try to convince the person that actually this is not sustainable, even if you have very good points, then it goes so deeply into that what person is actually really, how he or she is used to live and how she is used to consume. So, but there are really small things. I think that for me, one of the best things every time when I go to the shop and buy something, first of all, I think to whom I give my money. I really don't want to give my money to the big corporations, for example. I want to give my money to somebody who produces locally or who is able to explain how their products are sustainable, or I buy something which is very expensive, really expensive, that I know that I will use that product at least next 15 years. For example, the boots I'm wearing. They were extremely expensive, but I know that I will wear them all my life because they are really good quality. So that's how it works. It's about the awareness and about the transparency. And if you, as a designer, enter to the company or you start with your own company, I think the most important thing is always to think about the product life cycle. What does it mean when you produce it? Even if you are able to produce sustainable products from the monomaterials, from the, I don't know, organic materials, or you upcycle, you always have to think the other part as well. What will happen with the product when your consumer doesn't want to wear it or use it anymore? What happens then? Because the waste has become really one of the biggest complicated issues, because there is no place to put it anymore. We have seen it very, very well with plastics as well. Yeah, because...
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.